All right, guys, I'm going to kick this off for you guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another Spooky2 tutorial. Tonight, we are going to be covering the scalar. I'm going to do a brief introduction of who I am. We're going to talk tonight about the scalar, how to set it up, how to tune the scalar. We're also going to cover the 4 different modality approaches that you can use with the Spooky2 scalar. The first and the primary one being just pure scalar itself. We're also going to talk about the methods for adding Rife modulations or frequencies into the pure energy field. We're also going to talk about molecular modulations. These are pills, prescriptions, essential oils, things like that that you can add that will be drawn into the field as well. And then we're going to talk about audio modulations. That would be done with an accessory called the harmony. So to wrap up tonight's presentation, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about some of the imprinting processes and experiences that I've had with using the Spooky2 scalar system. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. So I hope this is easy enough and entry enough that even if you don't have one of these, you need to understand what it's capable of and what experiences I've had using it over the last couple of years. All right, so let's jump right in. Again, my name is Brad Johnson. I currently am a practitioner out of the United States. I used to be a wireless engineer with a background in modulation, so I know and understand how communications work very, very efficiently. A little over a year ago, I started working as a trainer for Spooky2 and have worked my way up to becoming a gold trainer for them. If you know me, I always openly joke about as a child winning the genetic lottery because I suffered from so many various diseases, including type 1 diabetes and brain fog, fatigue, my digestive issues, anxiety, and depression. All of these issues I've used the Spooky2 system to help me resolve, including additional steps to the type 1 diabetes that I'm going to be talking to you guys tonight about. However, the scalar system itself has a lot of information to cover. And so if for any reason you find yourself finding the need for additional questions, or you like one-on-one help, or you're just looking for extra info on in general about anything Spooky2 related, please feel free to shoot me an email and or join my Telegram channel. There's a lot of information, as I mentioned, to discuss, some of which I can't cover in this presentation. So the only way you'll be able to find that is through my Telegram channel. All right, let's jump right in, guys. So scalar, what is it? Scalar energy is the convergence when you have two identical electromagnetic or EMFs that are opposite direction of each other. So one coil over here, one coil over here, and the cancellation or the free movement of EMF that are kept in place. This is something that back in old school, like Nikola Tesla, Einstein, Maxwell, these people all used to refer to this as stationary energy because it was basically it didn't move at all. But what that process of how it formed is you have two coils, and that the phasing of one coil back to that other coil creates a pure energy field between the two. And that concentration of what they refer to as stationary energy has tremendous health benefits. And those are what we're going to cover and go over tonight. So some of the primary benefits of what the Spooky2 scalar system brings to the game with regards to what it offers as a product: it stimulates the cellular growth inside your immune system. It provides energy to the cells inside your body. It improves the cell wall permeability as well as repairs DNA. And this is all with just pure energy scalar. It can also improve the memory and support communication between your cells, meaning that the communication of how the cells communicate inside the body is repaired and increased. And it actually really does help improve the overall quality of sleep. I speak to multiple different people who try to get over certain issues of what's happening in certain areas of where they're living, and they are amazed at what happens when you simply introduce a pure energy field into the room where you sleep. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight too as well. As you can tell here on the left side of this, though, there are multiple animals. Anytime I set my scalar up in the room, or even other clients of mine that have set their scalars up, animals tend to flock towards it. For some reason, they know and can sense where that energy is, and they're just drawn right to it. In fact, this little guy's smiling down here. All right, so what comes in the two cases when you purchase a Spooky2 scalar? So these cases are kind of rugged, and I actually enjoy that fact about them, meaning everything stores up inside of them. The power cable, the link cable, everything shuts down and stores up. You can move and transport it very, very, very easily. And this is a very unique feature about it because Whereas most other kind of scalars that you'll find out on the market are effective, but they are a fixed platform, meaning one coil's here, one coil's here. You're not getting any further. With this type of design, you can actually increase and make as large of a scalar field that you'd like, granted the link cable between the two. So when you open these two cases, you're looking at basically what you have is a transmitter case and a receiver case. And inside the transmitter, it's going to have the power that you plug in, the position where you'll link everything. The BNC is for connecting to the generator when you're bringing frequencies in. This little display screen here is where the display will be displayed when you power it on. And this little small LED indication on here, at first you won't see this until you power it on and start tuning it. And then this little LED will get brighter, and we'll cover this as we go through the tuning. But on the transmitter coil, this is actually a coil itself here. So this means that you can act it as an output coil for imprinting anything with a crystalline structure. So receiver side, same thing, link connectivity, meaning the link from the transmitter is going to link to the receiver case. This receiver also has a coil fairly similar to the transmitter coil. Now, this also has what we call a link light. Now, this is not designed to be kept on, and we'll talk about this, but this is really just designed to try to prove that your scalar fields are aligned and everything is set up right. But once you have that set up, remember to always turn that off because you don't want it to burn the light out. Okay, so this is technically what comes inside the case when you order a Spooky2 scalar. So how do you actually set this up? So the lids will open up towards each other, and that is ultimately how you are going to align the two cases to each other. So the distance that you set between those two cases is the variable that, again, the farther that you align the two cases out, the stronger the scalar field is going to be. A perfect example of this is if you look over my shoulder here, you see this is the scalar in my room, but it stretches all the way over to the next office where my wife's room is over next door. So between the two rooms, her office and my office, we both have a relatively decent sized scalar field as you go between the two rooms. Okay, no different. Anyone can do this with just a long scalar link cable here. Okay, so let's talk about the first type of modulation. The first type of modulation is just pure. Oh, actually, before we get to the modulation, we got to figure out how to tune it. So when you're doing the pure energy modulations, that's the first step. The first thing that you have to do is with power and tuning. You won't need any type of generators or any type of connectivity to Spooky2 software. This is just hooking power up to it, turning it on, and how to link the two coils together. Okay. So when you first turn this on, again, as I mentioned, this little LED won't be illuminated. But as you turn that knob counterclockwise, it's originally going to light up and start at 8 megahertz. The more you tune it, right around the 6.5 all the way down to about the 4.8 mark, this light will start glowing and get incredibly bright. Once it hits its brightest point, stop tuning it. Okay. And so an ideal situation for me, I am I, for some reason, have had a really good experience tuning my scalar fields to 5.55. So no matter what, I always tune to 5, right to 5.55. Once I do that, I'm going to walk over to the receiver side coil. I'm going to press that link light, and as long as it lights up red like this, then I know, okay, perfect. I've got a link field set up between us, and then I turn it back off so that it's not illuminated, and then I simply get back into the scalar. And again, you'll find different types of reactions will have different experiences with different people depending upon their sensitivity to the energy fields themselves. But generally, what I've found is the lower that you link the two, the more effective the field can be. So I've been able to link at 6.3, but I've also linked at 5.5. I link lower than that too. So find that right type of area or zone that's going to work for you and stay right in that zone. Okay, so now we'll talk about the first modulation. With the pure energy, you got to understand the large majority of the things I do to try to help others is with pure energy. Like I would say roughly 95%, simply because of the fact that you can simply create and tune the field. And simply by putting yourself in it, we've gone over all the different benefits that can provide just by entering into the pure energy field itself. Now, when you set these up, as you see with my setup, I use wooden tray tables, and I do that simply because they're less conductive. And with that linked cable, it is relatively sensitive, so you want to keep that away from metallic items. It's going to draw away from the link of the two coils, remember? So I'm not saying that you would absolutely have to use it. Obviously, you set up something convenient. but you do want to find something that's of similar height. So if you're using if you're sleeping on a bed, then the bedside tables or something like that would be about the same height, or tray tables like this that you can pick up almost anywhere are relatively cost-effective option. Wood, so they're not real conductive, and they will work with regards to being able to stretch them out as far or as short as you want to. But with regards to how short, the minimum distance that you should generally set up a Spooky2 scalar is at least 6 feet. The reason why is because the lids themselves will generally have a relatively high EMF field coming right off of them. It doesn't automatically tune right at the source of the lid. It tunes almost off of the lid. Like I said, anywhere between 10 to 12 inches coming off both sides of the lid. So imagine you've got a foot or two on either coil, right? And the width of your shoulders between is 2 feet. That's telling you that no matter what, you should be at least 6 feet apart to make sure that you're staying out of EMF of the range of the coils coming off the side, and that you're actually in that pure energy field. But what I mentioned before is this isn't like a normal waveform, meaning the larger and the farther apart that you make those two coils, the stronger and the bigger the field gets. So don't be afraid to only have to set something up at 6 feet. Obviously, accommodate for the size of your environment. But if you've got an open area where you have a 65-foot link cable, drag that puppy out and get that thing huge. Make the whole room of wherever you are a scalar field. Okay. Again, this is just pure regular scalar energy. When you're tuned, and inside this case is, you have to imagine that this is the concept of removing yourself from the environments that we're all dissonantly tuned to. So no Wi-Fi, no EMF, like these are all the stuff that are in the environments that we're all living in, where we have homes that are wired with 50 or 60 ohm wiring. We all live in these dissonant worlds, and these things play a role on how we interact with stuff as electrical beings. So putting yourself in a pure energy field where you remove all that, that is why this accelerated health possibility is so possible, is because you remove the hecticness of what the normal stuff that we're used to in our lives. All right, so let's talk about Rife Scalar. Now, when you're introducing frequencies into the scalar, this is where this device is truly one of the most unique products out there. And what I mean by that is simply by the fact that not a lot of products that are out there or readily available will use both Nikola Tesla type technology and Royal Raymond Rife technology in the same device. But this is an instance where that is one of those cases. So we've already established how you create and establish a pure energy field. But in addition to that, if you want to then pipe in frequencies, you can then use the Spooky2 software and either bring them in with an XM generator, or my preferred method, and what I'm going to be talking and showing about tonight, is how to save frequency programs out of the Spooky2 software into a Gen X or a Gen X Pro, and then run them from the memory directly from the Gen X Pro into the scalar field on an as-need basis. So I'm going to show you a couple of frequencies that I use for setting up my scalar. But for the most part, as I mentioned before, remember 90 or 95 or so % of the normal stuff that I'm doing is pure energy scalar. But if the situation presents itself, like for example, you have a normal person who normally would come over and do normal scalar sessions, but that morning when they call you, they're like, man, I've had a really upset or rough weekend. My dog ran away and I lost my job and all these problems, so and so. When that individual comes over, then you may want to add a frequency like a depression-based program to help change the mood in that healing session. You know, like it's all on an as-need basis. The pure energy field will do its thing. But in his situation, because he's had such a traumatic event and so many things kicked off, it wouldn't hurt to help amplify that scalar field with bringing an additional Rife modulation. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So before I move forward, I do need to let you know that when you are in the Spooky2 software, if you do not see these 7 tabs, I don't want you to be spending a lot of time scrolling through going, my software doesn't look like what he's showing me on the screen. Simply go up to Utils and toggle advanced features. And then when you see all 7 tabs like this, everything that you see on your system should match what is on my system or on these screens. Okay. So if we're going to be running particular programs into the scalar device, and I want to save them into my Gen X or Gen X Pro memory, I first have to select a shell program. So on the first screen here, down in yellow, you're going to select shell empty preset. Okay. Once you do that, you're then going to specify the fact that we're going to be putting and running these things with scalar. So select scalar as your modality approach. Now, in this instance, on the next page, you're going to be given three options. These are just the choices of different settings that you can use. The general, by the default, is generally going to be the normal one to go to. However, if you're doing specific, like adding frequencies just to an XM generator, or if you're just running with a Gen X Pro or something like that, then you can use the offline option. Or again, if you want to introduce the Anthony Holland 11th harmonic multiplier as an additional way of increasing the frequencies that are running in that scalar, then you would run the 11th harmonic settings. These three options are all different choices for the settings. You're still going to have to go to the programs tab and select the specific programs that you want to load, but this will be how those programs are run when you're running them in the scalar. Okay, so let's select Scalar General. Okay, now when we go to the Programs tab, this is where you're going to search out the specific programs that you want to add. So again, these are just specific programs that I have incorporated into my unit, and they're just individual programs. You could combine all of these as one program if you wanted to, but then you wouldn't be able to kind of navigate to a specific thing if you only wanted to run something like State of Relaxation or something like that. These were just programs that I found were very effective with regards to already having an established scalar field, but when I added these frequencies in, they were way, 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 way more effective, according to the feedback from the people I was having sit in them. So how you do this is once you select the specific program that you're going to run. So in this instance, if you take the DNA heal, which is the first program here, and you search that out and you drop it down to loaded programs, once you come to the control panel and you overwrite your generator and select your generator, above the start here, it will pull up those same settings that you selected. So Spooky2 Scalar, and then right here, it's going to pull up the program. So in this case, the DNA heal program that we were searching and selected. Once that process happens, then you'll come down here and select Load GX. Now, when you select Load GX, it's going to pop up with a secondary window, and that secondary window is going to be the memories of the actual Gen X or Gen X Pro unit that you're trying to put these programs onto. So when this opens up originally for the first time, the tests are going to be in the 1 and number 2 slot. So if you simply click on them and use this broom, you can sweep out the tests if you'd like. But no matter what, whatever program that you had up here, in this case, the DNA healing, when you go to load the GX, if you simply click on that number 1 position, it will drop that into that position. Now, the key thing about this is that there are 30 spots. And of those 30 spots, each one of them can hold up to 200 frequencies. So that is a ton of really, really, really relevant programs that you can save for a if and when type need scenario. You can just pipe those frequencies directly into the scalar field. Okay, the next modulation is another one that I'm incredibly fond of. This is the molecular capabilities. Molecular scalar is the ability to take let's say a prescription drug or a herbal solution or anything along those natures and add them to the receiver coil of the Spooky2 setup. Again, this is once you have a pure energy field already set up and tuned. But once you do this, if you add them to that receiver coil, it will pull the molecular effects of whatever you add to that side. So a couple of things, obviously, a perfect example of this would be, let's say you have a pure energy field set up, but one afternoon you're like, yo, no, I got a really bad headache. I have this Tylenol here, but instead of taking the Tylenol, you simply set it on the receiver coil and then sit between the two cases. Within a couple of minutes, it's going to bring the effects of that Tylenol into your pure energy field and it will resolve the headache. Now, with regards to the amount of time, that will always vary from person to person and the severity of what you're dealing with. But as we kind of move forward with the imprinting story, I will be talking to you about the process of using this particular system of imprinting and using medications to try to help wean somebody off of an addiction that they had to a serious drug. Myself personally, though, now I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of this one that I had made a little bit of headway with regards to notching off my last remaining health issue, which is my type 1 diabetes. So most normal diabetics are taking a consistency of 2 types of insulin if you're a type 1 diabetic. I take a fast-acting insulin, which is exactly what you see there, that Asperflex pen. That is normally done as I eat and as I adjust things throughout the course of the day. However, at nighttime, you normally take a long-lasting insulin because your activities go down. That also impacts the rate in which things are breaking down inside the body. And so most of the times I would have taken a nighttime insulin, but this became too much of a headache and a hassle for me, unfortunately having to deal with the local pharmacies and the insurance people once a month for the standard insulin versus twice a month for double insulin was unfortunately just too much for me. So what I came up with was a solution where I'm using a continuous glucose monitoring system to keep track of my blood glucose. I'm introducing tiny bits of insulin, of fast-acting insulin, onto the receiver coil as I sleep at night. And that is helping me track and keep stable glucose readings as I tread throughout the course of the night. Now, this is that tracking and monitoring system. So you can see as I go through the night times, it's relatively stable. But it's very, very difficult to do this with the scalar simply because with a diabetic, you normally have rising or falling numbers. So it's only really when I'm trending pretty level that I can adjust as to how much insulin is actually paying which to me with regards to keeping my blood sugar in check over an extended multi-hour period of time throughout the course of the night. However, this has made it so that I no longer need a long-lasting insulin. So now I am simply down to one fast-acting insulin, which I can carry with me at all times. No more long-lasting insulin, no more interactions with what I take on with regards to food or snacks at nighttime. This is much more manageable and much more controllable. And I'm working, like I said, chipping away slowly and surely that last little notch of mine being type 1 diabetes. All right. So the last and final modulation that we're going to talk tonight about is an audio modulation. This is called the harmony. The Spooky2 Harmony is an accessory that you can add to the receiver side. And once you add that to the receiver side, simply like this, you simply pipe from the harmony directly to your source. So in my instance would be my phone. So if I was running or when I was listening to something like 432 or 528 hertz or something like that, and I just wanted to pipe that into my pure energy field that I already had established, this would be the method in which you would use the audio device to do that through the harmony. Now, in addition to that, the harmony also has this little cup on here. So you can still add pills or other things with regards to whatever you want to add to the modulation coil if you're using the harmony. It's not like that when that's in place, you can't use those other things. You can, and that's why you see that vial sitting in that little cup holder. But for the most part, once you connect that audio source, one thing that I do want to make clear is that this is not a speaker. It's not something that you're going to like jam out to, like it does have a test button on the side of it so that you can hear that it's working and everything's piped in and running correctly. But all this is for doing is bringing in the whatever audio source of whatever you are listening to into a modulation into the scalar energy field. That is all. Okay. All right. Now, what comes in the harmony when you purchase it? So the harmony has the unit itself. It will have the user manual. It will have that multi-cable adapter here that I showed you, or that's currently connected to my phone. And it'll also have the old template and this old button. Now, most people that are purchasing current scalars are going to all have this button that comes with the unit pre-installed. But just in case you happen to have an old scalar prior to February of 2022 and you haven't opened it yet, then when you purchase the Harmony unit, then it will come with the button and the tool to be able to apply that so that this will mount directly on where it should on the receiver side. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about imprinting. Using the Spooky2 transmitter coil to place anything with a distilled solution or anything technically with a crystalline structure on those coils will imprint the effect of whatever you're running. It doesn't matter if it's pure scalar energy, molecular energy, Rifing frequencies, it will all imprint directly into the whatever distilled water solution or crystalline structure that you put on the transmitter coil. So this is like basically building yourself custom water. Like you would run frequencies into this thing, you would add on medications or anything like that, and then put your water on the transmitter side. And then when you sit inside of this, everything, including your DNA, is being imprinted into this water, custom and specific to you. So a year or so plus ago, I met an individual who was struggling with a severe morphine addiction. When we first started working together, she was unfortunately had been suffering from this for about 10 to 15 plus years, severe addictions, multiple different options, none have been successful. So when we first started working together, she was unfortunately taking 5 medications a day. And those medications were designed on an extended release tablet design. So it was basically like anything less than 2 hours throughout the course of the day, and she was in incredible amounts of pain. And so we had a lot up against our plate, when we first stepped off into this. But I actually started using Spooky2 systems to run morphine sulfate and endorphin release frequencies to help tapering down, going from 5 to 4 and 3 to 2 and 2, all the way down to one pill. And once we got down to one pill, we had to use the scalar simply because of the length and time of which her addiction had been. The drug had such a buildup and potency in her life and in her body that everything just wasn't working enough, even having multiple generators addressing certain withdrawal symptoms and certain other generators running emulation and or removal features for her. So what I started doing is I started setting up the scalar, and in the morning she would simply come over and we would set the morphine sulfate tablet on the receiver coil, and I would set 6 or 7 of these little 30 milliliter distilled water solutions on the transmitter side. And after about 20 to 35 minutes or so, that would trigger the similar endorphin release as if she had taken that morphine sulfate. She would hop up out of the scalar. She could put the pill right back in her little medicine container and then take these 7 jars with her. So that as the course of a withdrawal symptom would appear throughout the course of the day, she would just take the top off and drink one of those. And that would help her get back into that next day. But after doing this for so long, eventually we got her completely drug-free. It took about a 6-month process to get her completely drug-free, but she did wind up purchasing her own scalar and again learned and understood how to take this into her life so that she could break free. One of the proudest moments that I've ever had is working her out of that hard situation. She put her trust and her hopes in me to try to help her, and I put everything I could and through everything that I could potentially come up with to do that. And one afternoon, I was having a Zoom session. I have 4 dogs. You'll learn about Mary here in a second, but one of the 4 dogs, I was on a Zoom call and I got a knock at my door. So 4 dogs and a knock at the door is chaos when you're on Zoom. And so I put my Zoom call on hold and I went and addressed the door, and it was that client who had come and I'd worked her off of this addiction. And she looked 20 years young, like she was beaming with light, like she just looked like a completely different person. The glow of her skin, like her posturing, the way she carried her body, everything about her was completely different. And she was just stopping by to let me know that she was incredibly grateful and that she was moving back home to where she was originally from, and how thankful and everything she was. But man, when she hugged me, it made the hair on my arm stand up, because it was like a totally different person, and it's like just seeing the transformation as to where we were when we first started working together to where she finalized. It was incredible. It was one of the best things I've seen. So again, the process of using this type of device for imprinting or running frequencies or running molecular effects into any type of distilled water solution, as the example I just used, is a perfect example of how you can kind of think outside of the box with any type of medications or anything else that you may have, or even if you're taking certain sleep medications or something like that, and you want to start bringing them into the body without having to physically take them, try this process of imprinting them into distilled water solutions and drinking them. One thing that I will warn you about, though, is particularly when you're dealing with something that you've been taking as a milligram dose pill, taking an emulation or bringing the frequency into the body is never going to have the same type of effect as it would as what's going to happen response-wise when that body takes a pill. So this is something that you kind of have to work up to with regards to how you kind of break the tolerances down of whatever medication that you're trying to work off of. Just be cautious of that, because exactly, the remote is primarily very effective because the remote can run at specific hours where you don't have to always be specifically this, but it needs to be something that's going to kind of keep pace with what you're working against. Okay, so next I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about plant growth. Couple of years ago, I received a cactus from my father-in-law as he was moving. We used to live in Indiana, and as he was moving from Indiana to Florida, he gave us a cactus. And the cactus itself, I wish I had taken a picture of, but as you can see down here on the side of this, it had a lot of damage down here. And like I said, it was almost dead. And I didn't actually even really think that that was possible. But what I did is I started feeding it with 528 hertz imprinted water and putting it in the scalar field. And like magic crazy, it just started growing and growing and growing. So this is what it originally started spudding out with from the one, and then originally got so big that we had to second pot it. So now we have 2 pots that constantly have to stay outside. But no matter what, they're outside the front of the house, or even when you walk into the entryway, people are always like, "Oh my God, what have you done with your cactus?" Like, all I did was feed them imprinted water and put them into a pure energy field that they had the opportunity to thrive. Now, I will also tell you, as you see here on the bottom of the screen, that if you join my Telegram, I have multiple more very, very, very incredible stories to talk about with regards to plant life grown inside the scalar. But we're going to save that for those particular avenues. But just know that if you're struggling with a plant, putting it into this type of environment will very, very help it thrive back to life. All right, guys, this is a very personal story of mine. I'm going to introduce you to the Telegram will be at the very end, so just sit tight. This is Mary Jane. She is my miniature pincher. She was originally a service dog. That was she's been my best friend since 2008. We have rolled together diligently. She has helped me raise my children, and within the last couple months, she has started having some severe seizures, and it's been very difficult for us. However, I really do have to sincerely and from the bottom of my heart thank Spooky2, because with the introduction of the scalar into my life and into my environment, one afternoon I was on a Zoom call, and my mother came running down the stairs screaming, frantic. So I put my Zoom call on hold, and my little girl was seizuring and her neck was stiff and she had blood coming out of her mouth, and it was just not very good. For a 16-year-old dog, I was very, very, very concerned that she was nearing the end of her life. And the only thing that I could think to do was I simply grabbed her. I ended my Zoom call, obviously. I grabbed her and simply knelt her down in my scalar field with her pinned to my chest. And within 10 seconds, she calmed down and her body relaxed and she came right out of it. That was the first time. I set her down and she walked in small circles. I laid her down for a little while. She took a nap and then she came right back. She's had two other smaller, less intense issues, but no different. Both times, within a matter of seconds of me introducing her to the scalar field, that calmed whatever issue was going on with her. So again, I am always concerned as a parent, but at the fact that she's 16 years old, I know that she's getting older. And I'm just trying to make her quality of life as best as it possibly can. But from my perspective, the scalar helped me save my animal. And again, I know it won't always do that, and I don't feel like I'm tempting fate, but watching your dog in that particular situation that I was watching her in, and then watching her snap out as fast as she did, I can't blame it on anything else. So, like I said, you can take that however you like, but it helped me save my little animal for you. All right, guys. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. A lot of information packed in here. So there are my Telegram and my email at the bottom of this page. All right, guys, so let's try to open this up to some of the questions and see what we got with regards to people that may have questions that need some help. All right, let's take a look. It says, what carrier would you choose for snake venom, COVID vax, XTRA program? True scalar options. Okay, so for that particular one, that is just a resonant frequency. I wouldn't necessarily run that from a healing modality, so the Holland would be out. I would generally just use the scalar general program for setting wise for that particular program. Okay, it says when you're tuning, if you go past the brightest notch, can you tune it clockwise to go back? Yes, you can. But like I said, once you hit past that and it tunes down and you go back up, now you're tuning into EMF. So you want to avoid doing that. The best move, honestly, again, I don't mess around with tuning too super low or too super high. I love 5.55. You can, again, let's assume that you guys tune down to 5 or 6.8 or whatever frequency that you find. Oh, this is where mine is the brightest per my environment. That's where you rock. Go to the other side, test it, make sure it looks looking good, and then turn it off and you're rolling. It says when tuning the scalar, I note that when it doesn't matter if the scalar devices are facing, it does matter if they're facing each other. The two lids they need to be aligned with each other. Same thing like height wise. So if you have one on the floor and one up on the bedside table, that you more than likely won't link together. Like they need to be up and aligned to each other. So that way, when you phase the other return wave, that's what creates that bubble of that environment for you. How often would you retune the scalar if you run it 24/7? So my scalar normally does run 24/7. It is part of the active environment. However, if I'm going to be getting in it or if I'm going to be running a specific program in it, it doesn't hurt for me to turn it off and then turn it right back on and retune and then affirm, okay, everything's reset up and locked in. But no different like at nighttime when we tune it to get into bed, no problem. I tune it, let it go. But when I get up in the morning, I normally turn it off simply because of the fact that there's a lot of movement and things move, and sometimes we need to move the cases and stuff like that. So with that being the case, I turn mine off. But again, if you leave it up for 24 hours, I would just encourage you to retune it before you get back in it. It says, can you show the list again of the frequencies that you use in the scalar? Sure. Let's take a look at that real quick. There they are. And again, those are just a couple of them. So I think right now the Spooky2 system has over 60,000 options for frequencies. So you have tons, and I mean tons of choices of different options for frequencies that aren't even listed on this. These are just ones that I've particularly run, and the feedback that I collected from people running them in them provided very positive feedback. Okay, and again, worst case, reach out to me afterwards. I'll send you the whole list. Says, can I do imprinting on water or oils, etc. with a Gen X Pro? You can do imprinting with a Gen X Pro. You can do imprinting with a Gen X. You can do imprinting with an XM generator. They all run the resonant frequencies out of the Spooky2 database. So depending upon which accessory you're using for imprinting, whether that be coil or cold laser, or if you're using the scalar, all three are capable of running imprinting capabilities. Same thing with plasma. Says, can you use this with XM generator? Absolutely. The only downside to using with the XM is that you physically have to have the computer, software, everything up and running. But you want to keep that software and laptop as far away from that plasma field as possible. You don't want that all that EMF and stuff coming from the laptop being drawn into your field. Make sense? Says, why would you use it would be 432 hertz instead of right 438 hertz? I'm a fan of 432. I like, again, there are lots of different numbers, particularly like 528 or solfeggio frequencies. They're my go-to resonant frequencies for needing this or needing that and being able to pipe that particular type of frequency in and having a really solid result. 432 is one, 528 I love, even though, again, says, do you align the lids and so you can't see the other unit? Yes, again, you can draw them out as far as you need to. So let's assume that you have a 75-foot house. It's all one story and one length, and you put one coil on one side and you link it all the way on the other side. And with that same little type of coffee or dinner table setup, tray tables that I have, giant link cable, you could turn the whole house into a giant scalar field if you want to. As long as the lids are facing each other and you're linked, you can tune, confirm everything, and again, the bigger the better. It says, does the lid on any of the containers matter? I understood. Well, again, the types like of containers that you're putting on, you can use glass. I prefer crystal. Like if you're bringing stuff into the field, I normally use like what you saw there, like with the insulin, where it's just a little just a little like glass piece. I take the cork out and then I add the insulin itself to it. That way I don't have to bring the plastic or the writing from the label or anything like that into my scalar field. This is just for the photo here so that you see and understand that I'm using insulin, putting it into this type of container, glass or crystal or some type of label-less container, and then I'm adding that to my scalar field. But you can do the same thing, no different. Like assume that you wanted to combine multiple essential oils. This is where you would use like a shot glass or something like that. Put a drop of one, put a drop of another, put a drop of another, all into one shot glass. Can you use scalar wave with someone else in it? So Spooky2 will advise you not to share your scalar field if you have a serious issue or illness. My personal experience is I sleep in a scalar field very, very frequently with me, with my wife, with our 4 dogs. And we have a very, very balanced life between the rotation of plasma and scalar as kind of a teeter-totter effect to keeping a very healthy and high frequency lifestyle. Says, can you imprint items other than water? Absolutely. You can imprint anything with a crystalline structure. So let's assume that you have a giant crystal and you just want to charge that crystal up to take with you through the day. Put that bad boy on the transmitter. Can the scalar be used with the Gen X remote? If you're treating someone who, how do they need to be in the field? So again, the remote is separate. That's a different accessory and modality. You can always run the remote, like if you're running any type of programming, and then if they're sitting in the scalar field, like that's one thing. However, honestly, I've had situations where I've turned my scalar into almost a giant remote, where I put DNA for somebody that I was running in between the two cases, and that imprinted onto them. So then by putting that DNA on the transmitter plate, I brought the frequencies of everything into that sample, like basically turning the scalar coil into a giant remote. Um, Again, same thing, like just take that nail sample or whatever sample that you have, put that on the transmitter side, and then any of those molecular and or rifing modulations and or just pure energy modulations are going to imprint right into that. That then will take that to the quantum level. So now you're going to be hitting that person with anything coming on that transmitter coil. Basically, like I said, turning the scalar into a giant remote. Can you talk a little bit about how Scalar works with radionics and Bracana? Okay, so the radionics and the Bracana labs, that is primarily that is a simply different, that is um, similar with regards to having a two coil, but just as I mentioned before, like other companies, that has a fixed coil location. So meaning the Bracana Labs setups and those presets are normally going to use a fixed carrier wave like the Schumann resonance or 7.83 hertz as a carrier that's going to pipe that in, and then you can normally take some type of pill or a medication on a radionics level. If you want to take vitamin B17 or something like that and put that on the first coil, that will then imprint that into it's basically like a mini scalar. If you don't have expanding capabilities, you won't be able to increase that out or make those fields bigger because the distance of those two coils is fixed. Uh, Telegram channel, yes, is at frequency_healing101. Okay, for dogs, what programs? Any programs, my friend. Dogs, cats, they love frequencies all the same. And all the resonant frequencies that you find that affect humans will impact animals the exact same way. One of my most preferred and favorite stories to tell people is I had a client who I was helping running an arthritis and inflammation program for their hips of their dog. And we happened to be talking a conversation, and he says, "Oh man, she's really constipated." And I said, "Oh, well, why don't I run a program for you?" And he says, "You can do that?" And I said, "Absolutely, I got constipation programs." So I went to my device and I went to start the constipation program for the dog with the DNA and the nail sample. Only I stopped and I said, "You know what? Why don't you call me when you get home and then I'll start it for you?" And he says, "Okay, no problem." So 45 minutes later, he texts me, he says, "I'm home." So I text him back and said, "I started that program." And 20 minutes later, he texts me and said, "Mission accomplished, brother. Super glad you let me get home." So the frequencies work wonderful for animals all the same. So just be a little bit cautious with regards to the delivery effects on animals that are smaller in size than humans. What is says, where do you get the 528 to imprint into water? 528 is a regular frequency in the database. If you simply search 528 and scroll down, I believe it's listed as DNA integrity stimulate in the database. It's the only frequency that has 528 listed, but that is the 528 hertz frequency that you can simply choose to imprint that via any modality approach that we've talked about tonight, plasma, scalar, coil. You could even imprint with cold laser or TENS pads if you were below the water line. Like almost anything can be used for imprinting. How many people can sleep in a scalar field? I don't know. How big's your bed? Will this recording of this webinar be available? Yes, and if you registered via email, it should send it out to you. So normally it takes a day or so to go through all the editing and get things kind of scribed up. But normally, if you registered via email, that same email will get a link for the recording for this. Says, can you put two frequencies at the same time into G1 and G2? You can, however, your output, like if you're running the scalar, only has one output, so that one BNC is going to come from either G1 and or G2 exclusively only. No secondary input on the scalar. Okay, so we talked a little bit about my experiences with using scalar remotely with DNA, but with photos, I've never used and or had success with running photos. Now, I'm confident that there are individuals and certain radionics that use witness, photos for individuals that they have success doing that. But unfortunately, I just have a more difficult time associating the tie that I know exists with your DNA when you're putting that into a field and how quantum works when you're using that on a photograph. And just again, I haven't experimented enough to be able to speak intelligently on that, so I'm just going to select that one up. Okay. It says stage 4 lung cancer treatments with scalar. Yes, again, no matter what type of protocol you have, like even the cancer protocol or Lyman-Magellan protocol, they can be run via scalar. Anything that you like, if that's your modality that you're running it, it's a little slower. Obviously, the more effective approach would be plasma, because plasma is you're going to use plasma induction. That's a more effective delivery for going after cancer cells in the body. But if you just wanted to create an ideal environment, then you could run the same cancer-related frequency programs on the scalar with the scalar protocol. Same thing. Same programs. It says, how much do you drink water of prescription pill? Or do you drink the whole thing? So again, imagine like this. Like I had this one instance where my mother was taking a certain medication that was no longer available or prescribed to her. And so I found the molecular weight and I created a frequency program for it. And then I took 1,000 milliliters of distilled water and I simply imprinted it on a 24/7 basis continuously for multiple days, weeks after time. And if and when she needed something, she would simply come and pour a glass of it, and then I would add up, more distilled water to it. But it simply imprinted around the clock all the time, and that seemed to do enough of an effect where she didn't physically have the prescription to the medication, but she still was able to feel the effects of it from something that was imprinted. Okay, so says when you add the Gen X remote with the scalar, is it effective as the Gen X remote alone? No. Again, your remote is going to be far less effective than the scalar. The scalar is amplified, my friend. So it's going to be a much more effective delivery of anything in comparison to the remote. Can you OD on a substance on a molecular scalar mode? The body is only going to take what it needs. So I've run morphine sulfate programs and endorphin release continuously for 6 months straight. Never, ever, ever encountered a risk of OD. And again, I diligently tried this when I first started because I was nervous as hell about that when you said it too. I was calling her every hour. Hey, you okay? What's going on? By the 5 a.m. She's like, I'm good. I'll call you if there's a problem. But no, the body will only take what it needs. And so that's why the signaling that happens inside the body from rifing like that just basically tricks the mind into thinking, oh, we have taken something, release a little bit. What's the difference between running solfeggio through the generator and audio through the harmony? Well, again, that they're just different modulations. You could do both at the same time. One's a rife frequency modulation. The other one would be an audio modulation with the harmony. So you could introduce both at the same time. Okay, we talked about this with regards to the containers that you're using on the receiver. Try not to use the plastic that has the writing or the things on the bottle. Try to transition those to some type of crystal or glass or something, or just set the pills directly on the coil. Don't introduce the crap that you don't want. It doesn't use a Tesla coil. Like a Tesla coil is different. Like a Tesla coil, now you're talking about Tesla technology. Like something like this guy is just a coil that generates and charges and shoots. It's a Tesla coil. Whereas these are two coils that, when tuned, create a scalar field. Now, like if you look back on history, the Nikola Tesla was going to bring free energy to the world via scalar technology, transmitters and receivers that were tuned in phase with each other. That's how that technology is working. That's what allows it to work over such large or great distances. The farther away you get, the stronger it gets. Yes, with regards to the glass jars and testing stuff with frequencies and stuff, I would definitely transition that into some type of freezer safe material so that trust me, when I first started doing imprinting, my wife complained like crazy because I was breaking all kinds of little shot glasses. So don't freeze glass. Transition over to something like silicone or like just a plastic water trace so that you can keep a better eye on what happens at the transition as it freezes. It says, what light am I turning off? That is referencing to the link light. So when you first tune your scalar and you get that to that 5.5 or whatever millihertz range that you're going to hit at, and you go over to the other case and you press that link light, it should light up red. That light isn't designed to be kept on. So what light you're turning off is that same link light. When you confirm that the field's been established, turn it back off. So it's not pulling energy away from the field you just created. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we got. If you have scalar running and the Spooky2 generator running within the field, does the field impact? Well, again, you don't really technically want to do that. You want to move your scalar as far away from the generator as possible, because you're creating a field that you don't have EMF, you don't have a Wi-Fi tune, you don't have all the things that you're normally being drawn down from in the normal world. So you wouldn't want to introduce that into a field that you created that was pure energy. Furthermore, your generator could cause lots of problems if you get it too close to the scalar. So there's a reason why it comes with a 10-foot cable. Any suggestions? Someone with a low heart rate? Again, tons of programs in the database, not only just for heart-related programs, but even just healing modalities or wellness-based programs, or again, simply just putting yourself in the environment, or even if you have certain medications that you've been prescribed in the past, add those to your scalar without having to take them or introduce them into the body. This is an awesome way of working yourself out of specific health issues without having to introduce the risk of overdose or side effect from the medications that you're prescribed to or have been prescribed to. Can you explain the different types of frequency waves and what they're best used for? So yes, primarily this breaks down into two simple waveforms. Your healing modalities are designed to be more gentler on the body. They're non-targeting. They're not going to cause the same pathogenic breakdown inside the body as what happens when a mortal oscillatory rate is targeted. So with healing modalities, you are generally talking about a sine wave. In the case of the scalar, you're talking about a sine wave that's being sent out from the transmitter side. And as that sine wave hits the receiver side, you're then tuning the return coil. And that is what's phasing the same return wave 180 degrees out of phase. And when that phase happens, this is exactly like noise canceling earphones. When you put them on, you hear everything crystal clear in between, but everything outside is phased out because these two are in phase with each other. However, with killing uses a square wave. Similar like your cold laser, you click on a cold laser and go to settings, 20 square wave all day, killing. Targeted, more advanced things like cancers, Lyme, Morgellons, you may want to use or consider a more amplified waveform delivery, like something like an H-bomb, where you use the basis of a square with a very high peak at the beginning and end of every duty cycle. That's a very effective killing waveform. Square wave is killing, sine wave is healing. That is the basis for moving forward. Says, how does one dose a supplement or medication on the receiver? 2 pills, 3 pills, or again, 1 pill is more than enough. But whatever the molecular effects of that one medication are going to draw into the field. Now, the time that it takes that to impact you will vary from person to person. Again, remember back with our morphine situation, some days it took 20 minutes, some days it took 30 minutes, some days it took more, so it's going to vary from time to time, but just let that run until your body gives you the feedback that you need, and then you're good. So frequencies that I run with scalar harmony are like, again, 528, 432. These are just regular hertz frequencies that I'm bringing in the audio source as a modulation into my field. These are things that, again, like you have to understand that certain resonant frequencies on an audio will make a tremendous impact on the body. Like, have you ever heard a song for the first time? You're like, oh my God, I really like that song. It's because it resonated with you or you felt something resonant from it. Same type of thing. Like you're in the line at the grocery store and the woman in front of you is talking about her hard times or this or that, or struggles, and it hurts your heart because her frequencies are, hitting and resonating with you. No different with the harmony and with other things that you kind of introduce, like the scalar itself, like I said, is one of those, I talked about this earlier, it's one of those few devices that you can combine both Nikola Tesla and Royal Rife technologies in the same device. Not a lot of devices out there on the market can say that. Okay, why have DNA on the transmitter and not in the field? Again, you can have it in the field as well, but remember that transmitter coil is a imprinter, so it's going to imprint on anything that you put on it. So no different than DNA. DNA's got crystalline structure in it. Okay, so that's another thing too, is that's one thing to be cautious of. Like when you first get the scalar, the most common type of conversation that I have with individuals is, okay, Brad, we got the scalar and we set it up, and you were right, man. The first night we slept in it, it was miraculous. It was awesome. We barely, passed out. We woke up. It was awesome. We felt great the next day. The next night, we laid down, our head hit the pillow. I barely remember waking up the next day. However, on the third night, I woke up at 2 a.m. and I can't get back to sleep. That is your body telling you, turn it off. Like you got to listen to what type of feedback you get. I mentioned before, the body's only going to take what it needs. So if you sit there and charge yourself up and charge yourself up and charge yourself up, eventually the body's going to start telling you, I'm full up. You're like a battery, remember? So when you set that battery in the charger for so long, it's gonna be full. So there's no harm in turning it off and or letting yourself come back down and re-resonate with Mother Earth's frequencies or the dissonance that we're all running around in anyway. But if and when a day or so goes by, you need it again, then you turn it back on and readjust everything. But when you're constantly in it every day, every night, your body is going to grow accustomed to it. So just be cautious of the symptoms that you feel. Like I said, when you're waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning, feeling like you're bouncing off the walls, turn that sucker off for a day or so. Turning the scalar into a giant remote. Can the Gen X Pro through the scalar run a generator program through the scalar and create a giant remote? Yeah, we talked about this, remember? If you're bringing any frequencies in, that's just adding a right modulation. You could do it with regular pure scalar energy, and you can also do it with molecular. So anything you add on that molecular coil can draw into the field that you imprint into, including DNA. Yes, I've constantly worked with different people who are very sensitive to EMF and electromagnetic radiation. Unfortunately, that there are several custom programs that I design and run for people that are designed to kind of target different things in a combined program. Like a perfect example of this is the detoxification of radiation, EMF sensitivity, chemtrails 1, 2, and 3. These are all types of programs that as you combo them together, they will start helping break down and remove some of that stuff that's been in the body with regards to having so much electromagnetic radiation and or buildup of something as a result of doing other types of therapies. Can other subject be imprinted via scalar? Yes, we talked about this. Anything with a crystalline structure can definitely be imprinted. Can we talk about chakras? Absolutely. Even if you're programming in chakras as a frequency and bringing those 7 chakra programs in and or energy or meridian points or anything like that as you're in the pure energy field, those will help unlock and rock those. Like I have a lot of people who fall asleep when I simply run the crown chakra program for them, and then they have some pretty crazy dreams. So same thing. Use those frequency programs to unlock the specific chakras that you'd like to trigger. Okay, so this one indicates how they bought the longest cable, that they had, and it's run between the bed and that it's again, be cautious of having a super long cable because you do not want that cable coiled over itself multiple times. You want to try to find the right distance. So it doesn't hurt to have a 10-foot cable and a 25-foot cable and a 65-foot cable, depending upon the environment or what you're using. You just don't want to have a coil plugged in here, linked, and then coiled 80 times under your bed and then linked up over on the other side. That's not going to give you the scalar field you're looking for. Okay, let's check out what the SNEC test says. Can use programs and molecular imprint substances at the same time. Again, remember the frequency or the positions on the Gen X or Gen X Pro have 30 slots. You can run any type of molecular weight or any type of frequency in a combination up to 200 frequencies in one slot of that memory. Thoughts on PEMF? I love the PEMF coil. Big fan of it. I talked about in my last video how I use the PEMF coils to imprint the water lines of my house. So it doesn't matter where the water comes out. It's all has some type of imprint. Big fan of the PEMF coil. All right, let's see. I read in the forum, the body tries to go back to the original. So is there any joint replacement? Is it difficulty? No, I had a really bad issue with a rope swing in 2005 that I lost, and I had a titanium rod implanted in my leg. And no matter what, in fact, because I have the titanium rod in my leg, I can normally feel pressure changes coming from storms on the weather front a day or so early. But normally, if I simply get into the scalar field, I can resolve the pains that I'm feeling as the pressure changes are moving in. Is there anything special about people who have dental implants? The dental implants won't be impacted at all. Remember, the healing modality, it's not like you're going to be bringing out, things inside the teeth or cavities or anything like that. You're just putting yourself, including your dentures or gum issues or problems, into a healing environment. This is why it would be something ideal to sleep in. Is it normal we didn't feel any changes? Yeah, it's very common. Like people grow accustomed to how they feel once they start sleeping in the scalar field. Like I have noticed a lot very frequently throughout certain hours of the night that I wake up hot or sweaty, and I presume that certain things in my local area or environment may be running. So making sure that my scalar is up and running when I sleep in that scalar, I don't even wake up at night. Like I sleep right through the course of the night. Animals sleep wonderful and great. That's exactly the whole point of it is to give you a deeper quality REM type sleep so that your body can do the repair work that it needs. Says when using the Gen X Pro and Scalar digitizer with Scalar for BFB, should the link light? Okay, so this is a different question. This is relevant, I believe, are you talking about Scalar digitizer or doing biofeedbacks with the Scalar? Because those are two separate things. Scalar digitizer you'll run just with the Gen X Pro, whereas the Scalar digitizer would be your biofeedbacks that you're using in the Scalar field. Little slightly different than the digitizer. Not sure why my questions are not being answered. Sorry, shoot me an email. I'll definitely answer, and or you can call or join my Telegram. Says, is it safe to run terrain while running scalar field? Yeah, the terrain is a detox, so that's a healing modality. It can run parallel, but you should be cautious of running more multiple killing modalities and healing modalities. Healing modalities don't stand on each other's toes. So if you're running something like immune system stimulate and or any type of healing programs while you're in the scalar, those work together with each other. Whereas if you're trying to run something that's designed like I got a cold and you put the cold program into the scalar, that's not going to hit the way that you think it's going to. It's still going to deliver those frequencies, but it's going to be doing it via sine wave, not via square, which is normally the way you would break something like the cold down in the body. It won't make the cavities worse. Again, you're basically if you what they're asking is will it if you sleep in this will it stop cavities from getting worse? I have no idea. Honestly, to tell you the truth, if this were my situation, I would personally just use a cold laser because I can bring that right to the source of the problem, whether it be on the outside with the wrist or with the inside with the twin. If you're dealing with dental cavitation issues, that's the route I would roll. But again, after you run those sessions, then you use the scalar to repair and recover. Okay. All right. And again, guys, remember there's a lot of stuff covered here tonight. So if you guys have questions or you're wanting to talk about additional stuff that I have explored, learning the Spooky2 and the scalar systems over the last couple of years, not just with frequencies, but some of the experimentations that I've run, please feel free to follow me on my Telegram channel. Again, additionally, my email address is down here, so please feel free to shoot me an email. Normally, I will get back to you relatively quickly with a response, but the whole point of knowing and having all these devices is to try to help improve your overall quality of life when you're using them. But you know different. You have to use your body as a gauge to tell you when you're good or when you're not. It can be common sometimes if you're getting in the scalar field to not notice the effects of it. Like a lot of people don't. So one story I want to end with here is I had two clients once that Angie, you'll love this story, that drove to see me from Ohio to do training for scalar. And while one of the individuals was sitting in the scalar, at about the 5 minute mark, she said, I don't think I'm feeling anything. And her sister and I were talking in my kitchen, and we go on conversing. And about the 10 minute mark, I hear her say, oh, I definitely think I'm feeling something. It's okay. You either will, you won't. That is totally fine, but no matter what, I just kind of let her sit and chill in the scalar. And 25 minutes later, they're wrapping stuff up and we're getting ready to leave. And she jumps out of the scalar. And her and her sister go and stay at the local hotel where they spend the night. And when they come back the next morning, I say, hey, how was the sleep? How did everything go? And she begins to tell me, well, I went to bed at 10 o'clock, but I bounced off the walls until about 2 a.m. Like that scalar energy has a tendency of catching up with you one way or the other. So try to use your body as a guide for what is what and when you need it and when you don't or when it's too much. Like this is the whole point and process of documenting. We've talked about this in other videos, but document what you're running, the effects of what you're feeling, and how you notice. That's how you start finding the effective way to resolve specific issues in the body. So again, guys, lots of questions, lots of information tonight. My name is Brad Johnson. This has been another Spooky2 tutorial. If you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to track me down. I'll be more than happy to help work with you guys. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening. All right. All right, guys, have a good night.